Welcome, everyone, to the first Fabulous Facts deep dive, where we're going to be exploring Bravo, the Showstopper. Amongst all of the festivities and shows that would take place throughout Aria all year round, by far the most prominent and popular was the Everfest Carnival. The Everfest Carnival is essentially a giant roaming circus, the size of a small town, and within it they held hundreds of different attractions, whether they be large troupe performances, even down to the individual performing an act. This carnival is where Bravo the Showstopper made his name. At 18 years old, Bravo decided to put on one of his favorite old legends, enlisting the help of a couple strongmen and an enchantress, the legend of Magnus the Vigilant. This performance quickly became a staple within the Everfest Carnival, and eventually his troupe grew, transforming into what is now known as Bravo's Legendarium. By the time Bravo reached 26 years of age, he had amassed a troupe of over 30 performers and stagehands, and an act that was beloved by audiences all across Aria. At one point during one of the Legendarium's hiatuses, Bravo embarked with two of his troupe members, Gawain and Morgan, and set off on what would become the journey that turned Bravo into a hero. Gawain and Morgan had told Bravo that they had been summoned by the Wayfarers and that they were on their way to the Fractal Scar. Bravo, recognizing this as an adventure similar to what they'd been performing for people all across Aria and the legends that they'd been performing, decided to embark with them. As they set off, the travel began much as Bravo had anticipated. They'd travel through towns, people would be happy to see them, they'd sleep under the stars, travel by day on the roadway, but the closer they came to their destination, the more and more Bravo recognized a change in atmosphere of the towns as they passed through. Morgan told the group as they traveled that the Wayfarers had set up camp near the Fractal Scar, rallying anyone who came to offer their aid. As they approached the final village before reaching their destination, they were dismayed to see that it was nothing more than an ashen husk. The Wayfarers apparently had set up camp near the outskirts of the village. After entering the camp, Bravo approached one of the younger men sitting around and asked him what had happened here. The young man responded that a couple of years ago a massive sinkhole had emerged, and that some of the people in the area, thinking that it was just the work of the flow, changing the landscape yet again, had worked together to fill it in. And then that months ago, the ground began to rumble. There was no shifting landscape, no shimmer in the air to show that it was the flow yet again at work, just a quaking of the earth. As the town folk slowly emerged to examine what was causing the commotion, they instead witnessed the earth cracking apart, and the next thing they knew, a swarm of creatures burst out of the sinkhole, descending upon them. The young man referred to these creatures as dregs, and after explaining to Bravo, Morgan, and Gawain the best way in which to dispatch these creatures, he directed them towards where they can go and be of most use. For months, the trio traveled around the Fractal Scar to surrounding villages, lending aid wherever they could. Some villages that they came across were still occupied, defended by people in makeshift armor, yet other villages that they had stumbled into were completely abandoned. As the trio moved from village to village, Bravo began to feel a weight settle onto him, but he was becoming accustomed to this new way of life, learning to use Anathos, his hammer, for true battle. As Bravo traveled and battled for his life, he developed the skills necessary to keep himself alive. It continued like this until one day the trio received a summons, a notice that a large swarm of dregs were actually making their way deeper into the heart of Aria, and anyone who was willing and able to lend aid was asked to gather at a nearby village. Immediately changing their course, Bravo, Morgan, and Gawain made their way towards the village. Upon arriving, despite his experience within the Everfest Carnival and the Legendarium, Bravo was surrounded by the most unique collection of individuals he had ever seen. Despite the haphazard look of all the individuals that had assembled at the village, it was very clear that they were all prepared to fight. Weapons at the ready, from bows to great axes, hammers to daggers, enchantments to potions and poisons. As everyone readied what they would need for the coming battle, a massive group of dregs, eerily silent, made their way through the village. With a massive battle cry, these protectors surged into the village, and during the ensuing battle, Bravo became a tempest. Every swing sent another dreg slamming into the earth, bones cracking beneath the force of every hammer strike, and before long the last dreg fell, leaving the village silent. Over the next few days, these heroes helped search the hills for any remaining dregs, any stragglers, and once it was determined that those had been dealt with, Bravo spent most of his time speaking with the villagers. In thanks, a festival was thrown, and Bravo was an honored guest. After many, many months away from home, the trio decided that it was time for them to return to the Everfest Carnival. Saying their goodbyes to their new battle brothers, they made their way back south. Upon arriving back at the Everfest Carnival, Bravo, Morgan, and Gawain were greeted with open arms and big smiles. And although it felt great to be back in his beloved legendarium, Bravo couldn't help but feel a sense of longing. He had heard many wayfarers speak of strange changes in the flow. And as Bravo greeted his companions and made his way into the sea of tents, a lone woman stood. A single eye gleamed as she watched Bravo leave, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. At last, it is time. The Guardians shall return once more. I hope you enjoyed this brief deep dive into the history of Bravo and how he came to be the hero that we can currently play in Flesh and Blood. There's a lot more to discover when looking at the history of Arya and at what could possibly be happening at the Fractal Scar that we'll get into in later videos. But for the meantime, if you enjoyed this, be sure to like and subscribe, and we look forward to talking to you next time.